Good morning and welcome to Jakarta. Finally, we have a workshop in Share with almost only students. They are committed to, of course, their own career path, but also to building their country and building an ASEAN community.
Being able to experience student mobility gives you a chance to be adaptable to a variety of situations, and according to LinkedIn's 2019 Global Trend Report, adaptability is the top 5 soft skills that is wanted by recruiters. So by going through a mobility, it gives you the chance to be adaptable, to be open to places when even you are not comfortable in.
As alumni of the SHARE program, I think as young professionals, we are more aware of what each country does and contributes towards a greater ASEAN region. That's why I think as a young professional, we know how to cooperate and how to capitalize on each country's strengths in order to make a greater ASEAN economic zone.
We wish ASEAN a happy birthday. Happy 52nd ASEAN Day.
Good afternoon to those of you joining us in ASEAN and Asia, and good morning to those of you joining in Europe. It's a pleasure to welcome you to this, the third Policy Dialogue 11 session, and we've a great session planned today all around internationalisation at home. My name is Darren McDermott, and I'm very pleased to be able to run these sessions. I think we've had very interesting sessions so far. Today, of course, we have a nice panel and an expert panel divided between expertise in Europe and in ASEAN. And as said, the focus is on internationalisation at home for inclusiveness. We just move to the next slide. So I'm the team leader designate of the SHARE program. The SHARE program is a cooperative endeavour between the EU and ASEAN, and it's a consortium run by a group of international education agencies from Europe, and they're responsible for the key result areas. So the policy dialogue component is led by the British Council, qualifications frameworks and quality assurance is led by the DAAD and ENQA. The credit transfer system is also led by the British Council for the moment, and student mobility and the SHARE scholarship is led by NOFIC. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the objectives of the SHARE consortium on the next slide. SHARE's main objective is to strengthen regional cooperation, enhance the quality, competitiveness and internationalization of ASEAN higher education systems, institutions, and therefore contributing to the evolving ASEAN community. And we enhance cooperation between ASEAN and EU to create lasting benefits from the harmonization of higher education across ASEAN. Next slide, please. So the policy dialogue sessions and the purpose of Policy Dialogue 11 is to look at measures to ensure the scalability and visibility of share activities and their sustainability and ownership by ASEAN-based entities. Of course, we're all looking at the challenge wrought by COVID-19, and we're looking at how we move beyond this and formulate effective adaptation strategies. We need to look at key activities and risk and mitigation strategies for the share extension, which is due to begin later this year. We're looking at the emerging developments and innovations in higher education, both in Europe and in ASEAN, and bringing relevance to share. And then looking at the long-term developments and innovations and perspectives on the development of the ASEAN higher education space. So, on to the next slide, please. So, great panel today, and I'd like to, I suppose we've all been looking at internationalization at home to a certain extent over the past couple of months, but to give a classic definition, internationalization at home is the purposeful integration of international and intercultural dimensions into the formal and informal curriculum for all its students within domestic learning environments. At this point, I'd like to introduce our moderator, who is an expert on internationalization at home. Hendrik Hobbs joined NOFIC in 2008. He currently holds a senior position as a policy advisor in the Knowledge and Innovation Department. Hendrik is advisor to the board on national internationalization policy and internationalization at home. He's also a consultant for the higher education institutions in implementing internationalization and a trainer in internationalization courses. So he's responsible for the theme of internationalization at home and is a researcher on various topics, including strategies for that topic. In 2018, he was temporarily commissioned to the Ministry of Education. So Hendrik, great to have you here with us today, and over to you.
Well, thank you, Darren, for that beautiful introduction and your friendly words on my regard. Let me take this opportunity to briefly introduce to you our speakers of today. You see on the slide the pictures of Miss Julia Hendelman-Smith, Head of Internationalism at the British Council, Dr. Shintu Ardi, Deputy Director of International Service, Bogor Agricultural University, and Mr. Kai, Head, Faculty and Student Mobility Office of Payap University. I will briefly introduce each speaker before they start their presentations. Next slide, please. The objective of this session, well, you've all joined this session on internationalization and inclusiveness. And what we would like to share with you today are some best practices on how higher education institutions enhance internationalization at home. We also would like to highlight the importance of internationalization at home, and it's important that we look at it not as an alternative to physical mobility or studying abroad, but rather as an addition to it, so the complementarity of the two types of internationalization. And finally, we would like to go deeper into how universities can capitalize on the rising number of technology-supported activities, which can create new opportunities for internationalization. And of course, we do that all in the umbrella of the typical and strange circumstances the world currently is in the COVID-19 pandemic measurements. How does that affect each of these questions? Next slide, please. I will give the floor to Ms. Julia Hendelman-Smith. Julia has over 15 years of experience in international relations, and she's working with diverse partners in the arts, government, civil society, and enterprise. Julia joined the British Council in Brussels after working in the music industry and the European Commission, and subsequent postings followed in Israel, Northern Ireland and France, as well as a short tour in the Middle East in 2006. Her current role is to shape the British Council's strategic ambition to enable all young people in the UK to develop international connections and skills. In 2009, Hendelman Smith was creative director and producer of the 2012 BBC documentary Shalom Belfast. Non-fiction writing based on her experiences in Israel appears in the collection Unholy Land, an Unconventional Guide to Israel, published by Repeater Books. Well, welcome, Julia, and she will share her thoughts on internationalization at home, on point of view of the British Council. The floor is yours, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hendrik. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And hello, everyone from London. I've prepared a few slides. If we could move into the next slide, the first. Thank you. So I thought I'd start today's presentations with some thoughts from the Internationalism unit at the British Council, and to take us back to why the British Council and through our work with other European partners over many years has been so concerned about young people having international experiences. And that is that it's our belief, and its research has shown that connections, that the more we connect and have dialogue between people of different countries and cultures, the more it benefits us all here in the UK, but also internationally in terms of global relations. Darren gave a very helpful definition of internationalism at home. We here see international experiences, what we refer to as international experiences for young people, as being sustained and cumulative intercultural encounters with people of other countries and cultures. And that can be at home and through time spent overseas. It's our belief that these lead to the skills and attributes that we need in our future workforce, and that's important for our future economies, our future societies, and tackling huge global challenges that we face right now. And that's why at the British Council we have an internationalism unit thinking about how can we make those opportunities available to all. And in my presentation, I'll talk a little bit about some of the ways we're doing that, given that the mobility opportunities that are so transformative for many young people around the world are still only available to a very small minority. If we could move on to the next slide. So why internationalism at home? And of course, we are all in this very strange period where we're all practicing internationalism at home for the time being, but it's been important since long before the COVID crisis, and my colleagues who will speak later will give some examples that they've built over many years. And it's the case that only 2% of the global student population benefits from a period of study abroad, and yet we have seen that those that do have that benefit lead to greater degree outcomes, higher attainment. They're more likely to be employed. They're more likely to earn higher salaries. And so what we're thinking about in the UK and in the British Council is that given that 2%, and in the UK it's an even smaller percentage of students who benefit from mobility tend to be from a more advantaged group in society anyway. And so if we don't address the issue of the other 98%, we're exacerbating inequalities in our own way in this, in our role as a cultural relations institution in the UK. It's also the case that internationalism at home, building international experiences, international connections into the curriculum and into formal and non-formal learning for young people enhances the impact of short-term particularly, but also long-term mobility. So strengthening that through longer-term interactions that happen digitally or through intercultural relationships within your university leads also to greater impact. And we are currently involved in some research with Universities UK here that has shown early evidence that leads to greater impact on particularly short-term mobility. If we could move to the next slide. Now, I'm aware that I'm speaking to a higher education audience here, but it's one of the key things that we've addressed in the internationalism unit is that actually we need to address issues of internationalization prior to a student's arrival at university, particularly if we're going to address inclusions, an issue around inclusions. It's the case in the UK, and we've over many years done studies as well within the schools sector about the state of internationalism within schools. And unfortunately, many young people who may have worked hard enough and be fortunate enough to get into university and arrive at university, many of them will arrive with no international experience, very few international connections, and often very little or very poor language education, which I know for many around the world, English is at least it's quite common for young people to have developed quite good English skills by the time they get to university. And of course, here in the UK, that's something that we take for granted. And so our foreign language skills abilities in this country are very poor. So our language trends reports, which we've issued every 2 years for quite some time now, and the links for these are available at the end of the slideshow, has shown that particularly in schools that represent quite disadvantaged communities in the UK, those opportunities to connect are diminishing for those people. And so what we have started to work with is, first of all, celebrating some of the successes of school programs, and to highlight here the e-twinning program, which is a digital schools partnerships program also funded by the European Union, which has done so much work to help young people connect internationally from an earlier age, but also connecting through higher education institutions and some NGOs within the UK sector around the widening participation agenda, and those universities doing great work to encourage young people to come to university, building an international element or raising awareness of international opportunities within that sphere of work as well is extremely important, because the decisions that young people need to make when they get to university about studying abroad need to happen quite fast. So if you're starting from a really low level of awareness in a student's first year at university, it's very difficult to then motivate them and raise their aspirations to think about a period of study abroad. And if we could move on to the next slide. And then I think I referenced this in my first slide, the value and the importance of diversity within our higher education institutions. And I think I'd raise here some experience from the UK that an international student community and an international university doesn't necessarily mean an internationalized student body. We've had some quite critical research come out in the past 2 years about the actual experience of international students and the way that student diversity is valued within higher education institutions and the way that students interact from different communities within higher education institutions. Equally, we found through research that we do little in the UK to value those languages and that language diversity in the UK that's outside of the formal curriculum. So student communities here who perhaps speak languages other than European languages, for example, a large Urdu-speaking community in the UK, those languages are not valued, and therefore young people don't understand how much they have in terms of their language abilities. Equally, encouraging dialogue and engagement between different student communities is extremely important, and that can be built. We've started to work with student union communities about how we can develop champions and ambassadors within the student union non-formal community at institutions to help bridge those community divides that can can develop within higher education institutions. And finally, one of the big challenges that we have is in internationalizing and decolonizing the curriculum. And I would argue, and others have done this, that internationalism is not only about building international content within your curriculum, it is about building those connections internationally so that you also have international perspectives on a curriculum. And there's been some quite excellent work done in some of our institutions around thinking about how we present the curriculum to students. And it's early days in some of these pieces of work that we're doing in bridging those gaps between school and university, or between non-formal education and formal education, working with a diverse group of partners in our Internationalism Alliance. But it's early results are showing that that does lead to improved outcomes for students, but also, and perhaps more importantly, raising awareness and aspiration among a less represented group to think about an international opportunity. And I think that's my final slide. So, I mean, I think my final points really are around the way we're approaching this crisis and the way we're all learning about international and digital connections at home. We've often found that digital connections are less collaborative than we imagine. And I think this experience has taught us a lot. And I think, you know, in the words of great men, don't waste a good crisis, in that this has been an opportunity for us to think about challenges that were important before COVID-19 and will continue to be important post-COVID-19, particularly in terms of encouraging a much more diverse group of young people to consider international opportunities and to build the international connections and skills and the global mindset that they need for the future. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Julia, for those interesting thoughts, I must say, on how to enhance the impact of short-term mobility for a diverse group of students in a pre-university awareness. I think that's very valuable. We will come back to that later. Just a short reminder for the participants in this webinar. Questions will be answered during the panel discussion at the end of this, or halfway of this webinar, and you are kindly invited to post your questions in the live comment boxes. I will see them there, and I will relay the messages and the questions to the panelists so that they can have a discussion on that. So please feel free to add your questions to the live comment box. And I see already quite a few messages there, and I cannot answer them all, but it's mainly people introducing themselves. Well, thank you very much again, also on my behalf, for joining us. Such a great group of very interested and highly specialized people, I'm sure of. We will discuss anything you have to ask later on in this session. Thanks again for your contributions. Now our next speaker is, I will introduce Dr. Sinto Ardi. She is currently serving as a Deputy Director for International Program Services at the Directorate of International Program at IPP University in Indonesia. And she has been managing students outbound and inbound mobility within the university since 2014, and has expanded her responsibility to support the World University Ranking Program since 2018. She completed her PhD degree on agricultural and environmental biology at University of Tokyo in Japan in 2010, and is currently an active faculty member of the Department of Agronomy and Horticulture and the Faculty of Agriculture at IPP University. Dr. Sinto, may I ask you to join the floor? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, for your kind introduction, and thank you, Cher, for having us today. So on behalf of IPP University Indonesia, I would like to thank all attendees. My name is Sinto, as introduced before, and it's a great honor for me to share about internationalization at home for inclusiveness with you all. So can we move to the next slide, please? Yes, this is just a brief introduction about my university. We were previously known as Bogor Agricultural University, but we rebranded ourselves to IPP University since last year. We offer all degrees in 9 faculties and 3 schools, and we are humbled to be ranked in several international world university rankings such as QS and THE. So our university sets a great focus on sustainability issues, hence we are also ranked by Time Higher Education and UE Green Matrix. So we are going to talk about internationalization. If we could move to the next slide, please. Yes, as a higher education institution, in our perspective, internationalization is any effort to prepare all students for a life and career in the globalized environment. So we believe this can be achieved through enhancement in active mobility, excellent curriculums, and also strong partnerships. So before the COVID-19 pandemic, we've done several things in our internationalization strategy. So if we could move on to the next slide. Yeah, we believe to prepare our students for a globalized environment. We have been implementing common internationalization strategy in some of these following programs. We offer at least 5 international undergraduate programs. In other programs, we also offer various courses taught in English to accommodate credit earning programs, including SHARE, and also joint research projects. Besides, we offer joint and double degree graduate programs with various institutions. As a matter of language, since the first year, our students are equipped with mandatory English requirements, beside other optional foreign language courses that they can take as an option. Last but not least, there are numerous public lectures with international professors and lecturers. So, but what we have now, we can see in the next slide. Yes, so this is, however, to date, this is how our internationalization progress, just like mentioned by Julia before. Among more than 29,000 students that we have, only less than 2% were international students, and only less than 4% of local students have undertaken physical international experience. This clearly shows that international experience remains exclusive for most of students so far. That's why we have to fabricate inclusivity in our internationalization strategy. So if we can move to the next slide. And while we are thinking about our internationalization strategy inclusiveness, somehow the COVID-19 pandemic arises. It was a big shock for us, and it still is. Our university is taking serious measures in facing the pandemic. COVID-19 Crisis Center was initiated to take all necessary efforts and define strategic phases to face the pandemic. By mid of March, our university was partially closed down. Students and academic staff started to study and work from home. Students continue their half end of the semester from home by distance learning, and our university provides internet subsidies for students so they can have their own online courses more conveniently. Related to the internationalization, the situation brought huge impact to our internationalization strategy implementations as the physical mobilities are drastically decreased. All of our exchange students return home, except for now one Filipino student who is staying, our dorm is staying, with the dorm fee being waived until the end of this semester. Though most of regular international students did not return to their home country, some who came from Malaysia have returned home in the beginning of the pandemic. Our students, Indonesian students who are having their exchange program in 6 different countries, decided to stay in their host institution to finish their program. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners who take care of our students wholeheartedly. And last but not least, all staff mobility, both incoming and outgoing, were cancelled or postponed. With health risks and travel restrictions all around the corner, physical mobility became tremendously difficult. And we were questioning ourselves how to implement our internationalization. So if we can move to the next slide. Yeah, we believe the answer would be through internationalization at home. So far, the sixth agenda became our main focus to achieve that goal. As the result of curriculum reorientation, independent learning enables students to partake in courses outside their home institutions, including courses offered by foreign universities. Recently, our rector also demanded that all faculty shall involve foreign lecturers in their courses. We also proceed to hold online international conferences, seminars, summer courses, and training remotely. In terms of English proficiency reinforcement, we facilitate classes and certification for students and staff. Additionally, we are working towards combining internationalization with university business cooperation as part of our internationalization at home strategy. Somehow, the COVID-19 pandemic becoming a wake-up call for our internationalization strategy. So if we can move to the next slide. Yeah, however, we think there are challenges in implementing those agendas, such as technology, internet, platform, and networking. How to get real international experience at home also needs further elaboration. But we also see huge opportunities if we could overcome this challenge. Internationalization at home allows inclusiveness and equity of shared contents for participants despite their boundaries, makes it more affordable and environmentally friendly. So if we could return to my initial idea in the beginning, in our initial internationalization strategy, where we pointed out that importance of inclusivity in internationalization, we can conclude that internationalization at home becomes essential during this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic because we don't have any choice. But post-pandemic, internationalization at home should not be an alternative, but rather as an addition to studying abroad. So I think that is our message from IPP University, and there's a lot of things still to be done about this. So as a closing, if we can move to the final slide. On behalf of my university, once again, I would like to thank everyone, and I would warmly invite all of you to engage with us through our upcoming online international conferences and summer courses. You can access more detailed information through this link. So let's stay connected, and I'll return to this session to Hendrik. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sinto, for this elaborate presentation, and especially focusing on the opportunities the COVID-19 pandemic has provide you with implementing your internationalization at home strategy and policy. That's really interesting to see. Please, audience, feel free to ask any questions to Sinto also in the live comment box. And we have already have some questions there, so please feel free to share some other thoughts with us. And our final speaker today is Mr. Kai. He is head of the Faculty and Student Mobility Office of PIAB University. And as the head of that mobility office, Mr. Kai has collaborated with international institutions on behalf of PIAB University and has taken care of international students from different cultures and backgrounds. And this has been elevating his awareness towards the importance of internationalization, especially at home for students who do not have a chance to study abroad. The pandemic of COVID-19 has significantly affected all international programs and has become a challenge for all educational institutions. And Mr. Kai feels truly honored to share his experiences with all SHARE colleagues. Well, thank you for that. And please, we are looking forward to your views on this matter. The floor is
Thank you, Hendrik, and thank you, Doran. And I would like to good afternoon, everyone. Uh, yeah, to talk about the internationalization at home at Ayap University, I would like to move to the next slide, please. Yes, to talk about internationalization at home at Ayap University, I need to mention something about our international college at Ayap University. Normally, our students at international college, they go to classes every morning, and after they call it a day, they just go back home. And this include our international staff and everyone also. So we have a sense like this building is isolated. That means Thai students from other programs, they don't have sufficient international exposure at all. Thai students, they go to some other buildings, they go to their classroom, they speak in Thai language, they have, they met their Thai friends, and then they go back home. So there is few activities between Thai students and international students. So that's why I would like to put this term. It is just like an island. So could you please move to the next slide, please? Thank you. The challenge is that our study abroad program is available, but it is a challenge for Thai students because the English proficiency is one thing. It is quite hard for Thai students to meet the minimum requirement, and some of them still have some financial hurdles and some other problems. Sometimes the family is not ready to let them go. So it seems like internationalization at home is a good option. At first, it seems like an alternative, but I would like to mention that it is not an alternative at all. It's just like a supplement. Could you please move to the next slide, please? Thank you. So what we have done is that we have tried to join two groups of students together, especially Thai students. Every time we have short programs for international students who are coming from other countries, we always designed an activity to join our students with them. For example, on the picture on your left side, students from Suzhou University, they arrange a calligraphy workshop for Thai students here. And Thai students, my students, they don't speak Chinese, they speak Thai and some English. And students from Suzhou, they speak good English and Chinese. But it was quite amazing that both groups, they joined quite well. So speaking English is not all about internationalization. Internationalization is includes some more other things also. And on the picture of our right hand, our inbound students, especially chair awardees, they went camping with my students, and they made good friends during the trip, and they still are good friends nowadays. So from my viewpoint, activities can bring students together, and they can learn so many things together by joining activities. Next slide, please. Yes. Talking about internationalization at home, I would like to focus today on this project. This is one of the Erasmus project. The name of the project is Friends. I would like to focus on this one because it is all about internationalization at home. And Payap University is a partner university of this project. And if you are interested, and if you want to know more about this project, this program, you may go to their website. I put the web link on this slide already. And please move to the next slide, please. Yes, the very first activity from Friends is a swag contest. A swag, some of you may have known about it, but if you don't know what it is, a swag is something that you give away. You still remember the old days when we have in-person conference. We go to a conference room, and before we enter, they always give us something like a pen, a flash drive, maybe a mug or something, and those are giveaways. And the point is that the contest is about students are required to design products that are supposed to be used by people from every culture. So students who want to join this contest, they have to design products that they have to avoid some colors that are not proper in some culture. For example, yellow, the color yellow is not supposed to be used in Brunei, for example. They have to avoid some certain colors, and the product should be used by all gender and everything. It is very fun because the project manager, he is an English gentleman and he doesn't speak Thai. So Thai students from the Faculty of Communication Arts, they have to make an appointment with the project manager to get things done and to discuss and everything. They learn a lot from this. They didn't win the contest. I mean, my students didn't win the contest, but they have learned a lot from this one. Next slide, please. Okay, and the next big project, the next big activity is about Intercultural Passport. The very first sub-activity is the massive open online course. The course is all about intercultural awareness and cultural diversity. It is in English, and Thai students, they enrolled in this course to study during this summer. And it was quite a challenge because Thai students, we don't use much English in our country. And so we provide some extra session to support them in case that they have problems, they don't understand anything, they come here, they come to class, this extra session to make sure that their understanding is correct. It is quite a challenge here. And okay, this is the first thing. Once they finish the MOOC, they can move on to the next activity. Could we move to the next slide, please? The next activity is about digital storytelling. Students are asked to make a video to introduce themselves. They can use any language to introduce themselves, 2 or 3 minutes. It is a short video, but if they use other language, they are supposed to put English caption on the video. And then once they submit this one, we will choose 3 winners. And to work on this short video, of course, they have to contact our project manager, that English gentleman again. So we have 2 activities already. The first one was a MOOC. They have to finish the MOOC. And the second one is the digital storytelling. And then we put them together. Please, next slide, please. So once we have both activities done, 3 winners from the digital storytelling, they have to finish the MOOC. And the 3 winners will have a chance to go to a camp in Bulgaria. It is a 54-day camp in Bulgaria. It is financially supported by Erasmus, so students don't have to pay anything. This seems like a very enticing reward. Next slide, please. Thank you. If we take a look at this, the MOOC is kind of internationalization at home, and digital storytelling, also the same thing. But the 3 winners who are about to go to Bulgaria in the next few months, hopefully the COVID will go away. Those 3 students and those 3 mobilities, they are virtual mobilities. And we do expect from them to do something. Next slide, please. Once they come back, we are expecting them to operate a tea house. A tea house here, it is a physical tea house. It will be somewhere on our campus. It will be a place to bring international students, international staff, and Thai students together so that they can join, they can talk, they can study together on campus, so that this will bring everything to the internationalization at home. That's the idea. Next slide, please. Okay, from what we have seen here, what I have said here, virtual mobilities and international students are imperative, because if we don't have virtual mobility, we will end up with only Thai students. In case of my university, we will end up with only Thai students here and Thai staff here. For example, I am sitting here in my campus talking to my Thai students, and I can keep talking about internationalization all day, and they will have no idea at all. And if I don't send any students to other universities, those other universities will have zero inbound, and that's not going to work. So for me, virtual mobilities and international staff and students are still important. Next slide, please. During the COVID-19, the lockdown, we have one student here. He is American and he got stuck at our university. And it was quite hard to manage any internationalization at home. Any program was quite hard. But my staff, they learned something. We have American staff here, but all of them have adapted to Thai lifestyle already. They are a little bit different from students who flew directly from the US. I couldn't tell you how different, what the difference are, but they are quite different. The way they think, the way they present their idea, the way they express their idea and everything are quite different. Maybe our staff, American and European staff here at Payap University, they know how Thai people think. That's all. And could you please move to the next slide, please? Yes, I would like to mention about our chair awardees. Payap students from international college, students from our international college, they were awardees, chair awardees. They consider themselves international because they have international friends, they have German friends, they have friends from Vietnam, from Malaysia, from many other countries, from Cambodia, and they consider themselves international. And I think they are international students. But after the chair program, they went to Malaysia and they went to Hue University. I would like to thank Professor Rosnani and I would like to thank Professor Hui for taking care of them. They came back and they changed a lot. I could say that they changed a lot. They grew up and they became more internationalized. My point is that being exposed to international programs and environment doesn't mean you are internationalized. Just like Julia just mentioned in her slide a few minutes ago, international does not always mean internationalized. These three students are very good evidence of that. They came back, they grew up a lot. They have been at our international college there, but they still have a lot to learn. Could we move to the next slide, please? Next one, please. Thank you. This is probably my last slide. During the lockdown, one of our professors, he had an online seminar. It's all about post-colonialism. And we have students from Liupanar University of Lundberg. I'm sorry if my pronunciation is not correct. And the students from Payap University, we attended this seminar together. Of course, students from Liupanar University, they are German. They live in Germany. And students from Payap University, they are Burmese, they are Thai, they are Vietnamese, and some other countries. And some of them are German. I could see some difference, the way they present, the way they express their idea. The German students in Germany is slightly different from German students at Payap University. I could say that. I'm not saying that which group is better. They are good students, but they are slightly different. I cannot tell you the difference. But still, my last word that I want to say for this session is that the best way to learn a certain culture is to live in that culture. You cannot just sit here in Chiang Mai and talk about international environment to your students. They have to go there and learn something by themselves. Internationalization at home is just an addition. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kai. Thank you very much for your overview, and especially of the overview of your friends' activities, which are really a great contribution to the internationalization at home activities invented at your university. Well, thank you very much for that. I think it's time that we go to some questions. We have quite some questions already in the live comments, so please keep on posting them there. One of the questions I myself had to all the panelists, and I see that reflected in the questions also from some of the participants, is how do you is regarding quality. That's what I wanted to talk about. I can imagine that the COVID-19 measurements are speeding up internationalization at home activities to a high extent. And I am also convinced that the staff and students participating in those activities know what they are doing and know what they are doing best. At the same time, there might be some questions about how do you guarantee that the activities that you organize meet the accreditation or quality measures that you at your university or at your organization want to meet. And perhaps there is a special committee or accreditation organ or an exam committee, or it's embedded in the quality assurance process of your university. Perhaps you can share some thoughts on that if you like. Perhaps, Sintu, can I ask you to share your ideas at your institution on that?
Yes, Hendrik, thank you very much for giving the opportunity. It's quite challenging questions about the quality insurance of internationalization process. Well, in my university, we do have not accreditation, but quality insurance units who guarantee that all process being conducted in the university has met particular standard. But maybe so far, not so many internationalizations measures have been counted into the quality insurance, especially internationalization at home, because what I see that we are starting to boosting the internationalization at home just when the pandemic comes in. We used to promote students and staff to go abroad and develop system to invite more international partners to come. And now we believe that internationalization at home is being to begun. But one thing that I would say about quality insurance in the curriculum perspective, it has been arranged in the national level. So our new ministry, I would say it's new because it's almost 1 year already. He decided the term of independent learning. So they will develop also the assessment, the quality insurance system, how to guarantee that this independent learning, where students can take other courses out of their home institutions to make them get ready to the globalized environment, is done properly. So for now, we have our own quality insurance, but well, I can say it's not developed yet for the internationalization at home quality insurance, but they guarantee another process like standard process of education and everything in the institutions. So I hope in the future we will take this as one point, important point, how the internationalization strategy at home is being conducted in our university, and that will be conducted or ensured in the university and also national level in Indonesia. I think
Yes,
that
I understand. Yes. Okay, well, thank you for that. So it's in the near future, a process that is foreseen. Perhaps Julia or Mr. Kai would like to also add something to this. Julia, can I ask you to comment on this?
It's a really challenging question, and I think what I would posit is that actually with international experiences at home and some of the examples that colleagues have put forward, it, like all elements of a higher education course, it's reliant on the quality of the input of the academic instruction that's available in that institution. And in many senses, and if it's a digital experience that's available in the home university, in your home university, there's more opportunities for your academic support staff to make sure and ensure that that's integrated within the broader requirements of your degree course. So in that sense, there's more opportunities for the academic staff to make sure that what the student is engaging in is to the right level and the right standard. I think some of the work that I've been doing with colleagues that, as I presented, is more around cumulative and regular international connections and engagements, rather than a course that's perhaps entirely delivered through an internationalism at home perspective. So I'm less able to comment on from that perspective. But of course, the quality of the education is a really moot point at the moment, not only in the internationalisation space, but also in the UK, students have all been sent home to learn in this way. And there is a lot of dialogue and debate about whether that's of sufficient quality, particularly if you're studying a course that has a practical requirement in science or in the creative arts, for example. It becomes very difficult to learn in this way. Those are just some initial thoughts, but I think both ensuring that it's good quality, but also evaluating the particular input of international experience at home is quite difficult and still a challenge for us.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, that's what I also can see happening in the Netherlands. Of course, it's a huge challenge to look into those aspects of especially the COVID situation, because of course also the regular education has been put on a distance, and it's appears to be very difficult for universities and universities of applied sciences to maintain the quality they are used to giving students in face-to-face education. So that's something that is really in focus here in the Netherlands. And I can imagine perhaps in Thailand, do you have any experiences or ideas on the quality of the education on the distance education, Mr. Kai?
Actually, I have to admit that we have adopted the idea of internationalization at home. I mean, inadvertently, because in the past, we just thought that our students didn't have sufficient international exposure. That's why we brought our students to international students to make them exposed, right? And we didn't think about the quality or anything else yet. But for the Friends project, my colleague who is running the program, they have some kind of like a KPI and everything, and it is still in process. But so far, I have no idea if they can claim the success or anything. But I'm sure of one thing: it's not a failure. At least we learned something from that. Internationalization at home is quite new for us. I mean, at IPP University, and we did that in the past, but we didn't know that it is called internationalization at home. And quality assurance, this is a challenging question also. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, your audio was a bit hustled, but I think I got your point. A challenging question. That was the last thing I heard from you, if I'm not mistaken. Well, thank you for that. let me see if there are other questions, or perhaps if you want, being in the panel, would like to comment on something, then please, you can raise your hand, and then okay, Sinto, please.
Yeah, if I may, I would like a little bit add my information before about quality assurance of internationalization process in our university. So like I said, that the online learning and everything is just been started, but in normal conditions, some of our study program is actually already trying their best to meet the international standard, meaning they meet the requirement of international standardization bodies for their field. So I think that's not really assessing all internationalization at home strategy in our university, but some of the study program is really certified to and meet international standard in their field of science, I might say. So I think that's kind of addition, but just like you say, it's still unforeseen in the future for us to see the whole internationalization strategy at home in our university.
Okay, thank you. Any more comments from the panelists on this topic? There's another one, another question from Meng Shuang Chu to all of you also. Could you please elaborate whether national level policies play a role for internationalization abroad and at home? So national level policy play a role for your internationalization policy. Is that something you can elaborate on, perhaps a little? Julia, can I ask you, or anyone who raises their hands? Julia, please.
I'll try.
It's a bit
we're from 3 different countries, so I'm sure we'll all say something very different. I think internationalization and mobility, there are some very basic national level policies that can support it in terms of inward and outward student mobility, such as policies on visas and immigration. Internationalization at home, I think it's harder to say, and I would say from a UK perspective, actually, that we would advocate for policies to support the recognition and the valuing of international experiences for young people in higher education and also more broadly. But I think the culture in the UK is such that quite often policies are introduced, and then actually for institutions to meet or deliver on those policies can be quite challenging. So it isn't the case in the UK that a policy is introduced and everybody immediately implements it. I don't know what other colleagues would say representing different countries, but I think certainly for the internationalization at home, what's more important really is that you build the best practice and you illustrate. I think you have to illustrate the success for institutions to follow. So it's more of a motivating practice rather than it's a carrot rather than a stick, I think, in the UK, if that analogy makes sense to everybody online.
Yeah, the carrot over the stick. That's a nice expression, and that's recognizable. Does anyone, any other panelist would like to comment on the carrot or the stick? Or yes, please.
Yeah, well, according to the question whether there is any national level policies in the internationalization strategy in Indonesia. So for a broad policy, yes, there are. There are many policies that support students or staff going abroad or incoming. So there are even programs, mobility programs that is designed at national level, at the ministry level. So our Ministry of Education make an agreement with Ministry of Education of other countries, especially in ASEAN. So they exchange students based on that agreement where they provide scholarships and so on. The indicators of internationalization, especially mobilities, also define the national ranking of university in Indonesia. Like, for example, how many students are going abroad and how many is coming in, and also for the staff, it has been evaluated to decide the position of university in the national rankings, as well as how many study program has international curriculums so far. So just like I mentioned in my presentation before, the new minister also have defined a policy called independent learning that enables students to take courses outside his or her home institutions. So the idea behind this policy is to enhance or encourage students to take more opportunity or experience out of the institutions and make them get ready into the more globalized environments. So I would say that we're policy that support the internationalization abroad so far, but we are hoping more policy to support internationalization at home. Like I said before, it's not only the case in our university. I may say that most Indonesian institutions are still focused on mobilities as internationalization strategy, meaning physical mobilities. And we are thinking the best strategies of internationalization at home. So I think the national level also thinking about that right now. So I think that's what I can share with you.
Yes, thank you for that. So that's more focused on mobility and in internationalization abroad, and internationalization at home will come later. Mr. Kai, you have any idea on the national level policies playing a role for internationalization abroad or at home in Thailand?
Of course, yeah, of course. Our Office of Higher Education Commission in Thailand, they are trying their best to push the international program for Thai universities, and they encourage us to send our students to study abroad. It is one of the strategy, long-term strategy. But the problem is that the problem is all about inbound students. Foreigners, any foreigners in Thailand are required to do a 90-day report to the immigration office. That's a big issue because if you are foreigners and you stay in Thailand, every 90 days you have to prepare certain documents and to report yourself to the immigration office, and that's quite a hard job for you. And this also discourage some students not to come to Thailand also. Don't get me wrong, this is all about national security, and we have many people coming to Thailand, and sometimes they are doing something weird, and the office is trying to push them out, and so everyone is put in the same pot, and so we have the same problems. But of course, the national level policies play a very big role. If you don't push, they don't go. I mean, the students don't go. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Let me see. Here's another question for myself and for Julia. Since both of you work for international education organization, could you share the role of each respective organization or any future plan to support internationalization at home? Well, I can share some thoughts on that, but perhaps I will give the floor first to Julia, or you can have some ideas on that as well.
Yes, I mean, we certainly prioritize internationalization at home within the organization and promote sharing of good practice both within the UK higher education sector, but also internationally. So in participating in European programs and policy dialogues such as this, we are primarily a facilitator. So it's about helping organizations to develop good practice and sharing of that. Of course, we have been a member of the Erasmus Plus program for such a long time now, and that's become ingrained within our higher education culture, I think, and tends to look towards the mobility opportunities that creates. There are many Erasmus programs that support internationalization at home as well. And I mentioned some programs that are actually pre-university, which I know is not the community here, but there are some really good examples of excellent internationalism at home programs from the school sector, for example, such as the e-twinning program, which is part of the Erasmus program. And equally, we developed another schools program, which was more global, called Connecting Classrooms, which introduced a lot of digital learning for schools. It's possible that some of that could help to inform our support to higher education institutions as they develop this more broadly. But roles like my own and colleagues who work in higher education are very much thinking about the value and the importance of internationalism at home.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think there are some similarities between our two organizations, as NAFIC is also involved in pre-university or pre-higher education internationalization at home. Also, e-twinning is very well known, of course, to our organization. With regards to higher education, we are closely working together with the Dutch University of Education. And have conducted some studies to the state of affairs to internationalization at home in the Netherlands in 2014, I think that was. So we made an inventory of how higher education institutions regarded policy-wise internationalization at home activities. This is the first study, and the second one was how they put it in practice. And after that, we had an idea of the state of affairs in the Netherlands. And had some dissemination gatherings. And currently we are working on prolonging giving that much attention to internationalization at home. In supporting, locally supporting Dutch universities and universities of high applied sciences, giving them the opportunity to present their good practice, and at the same time asking us to organize a network event where experts on internationalization at home can share their experiences and ask questions, learn from each other. And actually, in the end of May, we were organizing a physical meeting face-to-face, but of course the COVID-19 changed that, so we are setting up a webinar at the Dutch University of Applied Sciences, and we are expecting more than 160 participants. So there is a need for spreading information and supporting institutions in implementing internationalization at home. And we are currently working on elaborating on that, and together with the fields, together with the higher education institutions, trying to answer their needs and see for the next few years what we can do to further fine-tune the help and assistance we can jointly offer to higher education institutions. So yes, we do have, we think we have a role in this. Yes, thank you. There's another question, a question to Mr. Kai. Friends activities you were so beautifully elaborating on. It was fascinating. It's also said in the question. Was there a positive response from Thai students? And is your university planning to hold more similar hybrid internationalization at home virtual mobility agendas?
Yes, of course. Thai students, they like this one because they had a chance to go to Bulgaria. That's the first thing. And the second thing is about the contest. They had big fun collaborating with our team manager, the project manager, and they have learned so many things about other countries. And they are happy about the MOOC course also. I don't know how many exactly students enrolled in that course, but I have heard that the course itself is very interesting, And another thing about the collaboration, yes, our partner universities start talking about extending the program, and not under Erasmus program, but like a bilateral MOU or something, and we start talking about mobilities among our between our universities already. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I do hope that everyone heard your answer, at least partly. Next question, please. Yes. Question from Sarah. Hi, I'm Sarah. To all panelists, having internationalized curriculum, would it prepare students to compete globally to get a job abroad? So there's the competition in a globalizing job market. Who can I give the floor to have some thoughts on this very interesting question? Okay, well, Julia, please go.
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think that part of the reason we're also passionate about international experiences for young people is that it helps to develop more of a global mindset about working with people of other countries and cultures. So understanding both the linguistic differences, but also the cultural differences that exist in order to sort of work in an international career. What I could refer to is where where we lack that in the UK at the moment. So in the references that I provided, there was a study, Born Global, from a few years ago, where employers highlighted that graduates, so the elite graduates coming from our higher education institutions in the UK, still lack the capacity in foreign languages, but also in relating to other cultures, in understanding issues around things such as unconscious bias and not understanding how other cultures might approach similar subjects differently, not understanding the impact of our own history on some of that, and that's costing the British economy quite a lot in lost income and lost business every year. So that's a study from about 2015, I believe. So we believe that through promoting those international connections and skills, young people will naturally build that awareness of different perspectives from people of other backgrounds.
Does either of you want to comment on that, or have some additions to Julia's ideas? Yes, please.
If I may?
Yes, sure.
Yes, totally agree with what Julia just said, because in our perspective, internationalization is an effort to prepare students for this international environment. So they should be more competitive if the curriculum has developed quite well. So in our university, we started with what Julia just mentioned earlier, the language barrier. So Indonesia is not English-speaking countries, and to compete in the global job market, students need to be equipped at least with English. So we make it mandatory. And also we have optional courses for other language like Chinese, Korean, Japanese, and of course many other options in the university. And as well, cultural understanding, we are quite lucky that in Indonesia we are quite multicultural since the beginning. Students coming to our university came from many different islands in Indonesia, and the students are ready to get adapted. So when they go abroad or they meet international students, we already have the curriculum in their first year, how to understand other culture. So it's not necessarily international culture, but different cultures. So this skill has been developed in the first years of their stay in the university. And also these curriculums need to address the 21st century soft skills. So the international curriculums should prepare graduates who are agile to the very fast changing situation in the global situation. So I think having international curriculums should prepare the graduates to be more competitive in the global market.
Okay, and from the Thai point of view, Mr. Kai?
Okay, yes. My answer is yes, of course.
Okay.
Looking at my students from international college, all of them, almost, not all, almost all of them got jobs abroad, and they are good jobs. And some of them, I remember one of them went to Harvard University already, and they went to some good schools. So it means if they are exposed to international environment, they can work with international organization well. And in the near future, they will have, every company will have to compete in the global economy, and they need students who are exposed to international environment. So far, my students, they are doing well in the job market. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that. I think we have time for one more question. Let's see. Let me see. Oh, no, thank you. Here's the final question from Adrian. I'm Adrian, share awardee from Indonesia. Welcome, Adrian. What kind of curriculum would enable internationalization at home without having to study abroad or have to international students on board? Let me see. So what kind of curriculum would enable internationalization at home if you don't have to study abroad? And if you do not have international students on board? I think that's the question. That's an interesting one, I think. How do you set up a curriculum like that? Who can I ask? Okay, Mr. Kai, please.
I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. I'm sorry about my Wi-Fi quality. What I think is that, just like I mentioned in my last slide, it might be some kind of a seminar between two countries. Just like my professor arranged for the German students in Nuremberg, Germany, last month. He brought German students into the seminar, and Thai students, they came here and let them discuss. But again, it works well to some certain to a certain extent, but not really good. We can notice, we can experience what they think, how they express, but not the same as you go to Germany and study in Germany. No, not the same thing. But it's better than nothing. To do internationalization at home, you need international staff and international students to be on your campus, in your campus. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. We are nearing the end, so there's time for very short and brief reactions, if from Julia or Sinto to this, or yes, please, Sinto.
Yeah, so I'll try to make it short. So briefly say that Kai said before that to learn a culture, we need to be in the culture. So bringing the international students or sending students abroad is, of course, the best approach to getting internationalization. But just the data that we have, less than 4% of students can get this experience. So I think we can have the technology to help us, like the online courses, inviting professors to give lectures, and design cultural exchange between students using this online platform can be one approach. Of course, it won't be perfect, but it's one strategy if you have a small number of students coming or less opportunity to go abroad. So the message is that internationalization at home cannot replace the internationalization strategy like sending or receiving international students, but it can be the addition of internationalization strategy. So because sending or receiving students abroad command a lot of barriers, money and everything. So we need this technology to support our curriculum. I think that's all.
Thank you. Very short few words for Julia, please.
I'll be very quick. I'm a firm advocate that internationalization means connecting and working with someone of another culture, and therefore you can't solve it just. We could have a whole session on the curriculum and the content of the curriculum, but for me, internationalization is that connection. So I think a lot can be achieved if we build quality digital exchanges with students to develop work together and to collaborate together. But certainly I agree with my other colleagues on the panel that what we've been focusing on is building that connection at home as well as through mobility opportunities. What I really believe is that if you focus on the internationalism at home, you will always have mobility, and I think it's very important that we retain that, but you will have much more diversity within that small cohort of students that are able to take up a period of study overseas, and it won't be so exclusive to young people who have perhaps come from a much more advantaged background.
Thank you for those final words. I think that's an excellent ending to our discussion and to our Q&A session. Internationalization as a motor, as a focus on putting more stress on diversity, and at the same time realizing that the COVID-19 crisis has really, of course, in all its sadness and in horrifying situation, is also giving a boost to the internationalization at home and the development of that, where some questions regarding quality and the connection with physical mobility still remains, of course, to be needed, taken care of in the future. But at the same time, we are sure that internationalization at home has great potential, also preparing students for the internationalized global labor market, but also for their own developments, and also for getting those students who are not naturally capable of having an international experience by traveling to get the competences they need in this world, and not only the 2% that can easily afford this, but also every other student will have the opportunity to the best extent a university can provide them with, to have intercultural competences and experiences. I thank you very much for your contribution, Ms. Julia Hendeman, Dr. Sintu, and Mr. Kai for your contribution. I also thank you, the audience, with all your questions very much. And it was my great pleasure and honor to be your moderator on this session. And I looking forward to meeting you on another time, in better times, in better traveling times, in person. And I'm looking forward to the conversation we will then undoubtedly have on internationalization at home and inclusiveness. Thank you again, and back to you, Darren.
Thank you very much, Hendrik, and my great thanks for moderating the session. Thank you also to Julia, Sinto, and Kai for your excellent presentations and really fulsome responses to our questions. We certainly had a diversity of international education contexts and experiences on the panel today. And while there are differences in approaches, and there are clearly common challenges and opportunities. So our approaches to internationalization at home or abroad are always at their best when they're most applicable to our international missions and our aspirations. So I'd like to thank you all again. Thank you to our audience for your great questions and your active participation. And if we can look ahead to the next session, our fourth session. And this will look at an area that's very consistent with internationalization at home. It's virtual mobility and collaborative online international learning, or COIL for short, and particularly for an ASEAN context. So we'll look at some of the strategies and systems that can support internationalization at home. And we've an excellent panel for that session next Tuesday between 3 and 4:30 Jakarta, Bangkok time. Once again, please tune in to the same channel. And I'd also like to share with you our feedback form. I think we have it there on the screen. Great. Okay, so you can please give us your comments and suggestions for these sessions. So that brings our third session on the Policy Dialogue 11 series to a close. Thank you once again to all the panelists and all the attendees. It's been a pleasure.